not just one generation, but every generation has added to that layer of what was conceptualized by the founder. How does the process work? So a junior generation has an idea, and on a radical or an incremental idea for doing things differently. How does it get decided that that's going to take? Any practically, how do you decide?
So,
whether it's
so
please go ahead.
Sure. So in our case, now in my generation, of course, I've been in the business for 20 years, but I've had my brother and my uncle, son, cousin join in the last 4 years. So they both have come on board. Ideas do get generated, and sometimes they fit into the framework of what we currently do, and sometimes they don't. I think the way the group and the family is structured, we are very clear that we are publicly listed, we have independent directors on the board, so clearly any proposal must pass through that test. But secondly, I think as Aravind already pointed out, it must be within the framework of what we're doing. I think tomorrow if there was a business plan to get into hospitals, they cannot. I mean, they have to either leave the family business and go find funds on their own, or it has to be within the strategic framework. So I think that's what we do.
So the focus is important in your case, and that's where. So if a junior generation comes with an idea that's outside of the focus, is there some sort of a support with even network support?
Right. Sure, of course. I think any doors that we can open, we would. If at a personal level we believe in it, we might even make an investment, but not at the business.
Of course, yes.
So in our case, as I mentioned, most of us are doctors. Right? All of them aspire to become doctors. Some of them don't. They want to do something else. But when you become doctor, the journey is long.
Absolutely.
So you kind of take about, you're part of
the organization for 10 years before you kind of look up and make decisions. And to look for another opportunity and do it. So that 10 years gives you a tremendous space to judge that individual. And as we all know, not everybody is the same. And we also find that, there is a 10% of the family which is extremely vibrant, extremely bright thinking, 70-80% in the middle who are kind of running the organization. They're important people, but they are not the people who are kind of pushing the boundaries. And there are 10 people who are pushing the boundary the other way. They kind of take the organization back, but they're family, you kind of live with them. And so our challenge is, do the people have that endurance for 10 years? Because that's a great filter for us to know whether they're able to, can we trust their ideas? Do they have the standing in the organization to do something? So that is kind of inbuilt because they're doctors. Our challenge is, if you're not a doctor, that's a challenge. Because you're kind of a second-class citizen. We are like a bunch of peacocks. Any other color other than black and white, they are not looked upon. So that's the challenge for us. So how do they might have a brilliant idea, but today's organization doesn't allow their voice to be amplified. I don't have an answer, but that's where we are right now.
Well, this morning we heard from the Apollo example in which parenting, and it was more parenting through role modeling, but in terms of the founder or the senior generation still waking up and still going to work at 4 o'clock and the juniors looking at that. What kind of parenting has helped promote that spirit of I want to work hard, I want to contribute to society or to my family business in your family?
Do you want to go?
No, see, if you really want somebody to come into the organization, parenting should be one to conform to their beliefs, right? But the first generation were rebels. So that's the kind of struggle that they have. I don't think any first generation person will be happy to be in the third generation.
Yes.
They will eject themselves and do something else. So in our case, that's something which we are finding. I think all the upbringing, everything is fine, but the 10 years within the organization kind of determines who they are and what they are. But upbringing is essential because it's a dinner table conversation. They know what it is. Some people take it like water. They kind of come to it. Some people are completely, have an aversion to it. Say, I don't want to be part of this in this lifetime. So that both scenarios happen. That's a very small group who says, I don't want to be part of it, I want a better work-life balance. As doctors, it's kind of more of work. So that's what happens for us.
In my case also, I mean, parenting has played a very critical role as to why I'm sitting here today. So I think both my father and of course my grandfather, since in the early part of my life I lived in a joint family, I've seen my grandfather. There was never any explicit expectation that I should one day come and join the business. But I think it was very implicitly planned, the dinner table conversations, the kind of value system that's talked about and how the business is so important for the family. That kind of talk is what, and I find today I'm doing pretty much the same thing that my grandfather did or my father did, still going to office at 7:15 in the morning, and so, yeah.
Well, I was asked whether we are seeing changes in families and their routines around the world, and we're certainly seeing with the rush of life and distances and people living in different parts, it takes a pause, it takes that mindfulness to make sure the family is having dinner together. So there are actual dinner table conversations, or if children are studying in different parts of the world, how do you keep those connections going when you're not in the same country, for example? In the Merck case we did here, where they have a once a year or they have multiple gatherings a year. What's it like in your family?
So in my case, it's very simple. There aren't too many family members. We have a lot of shareholders, but they have absolutely no say in the business. In fact, many of them live in the US as well, but they just enjoy the dividends. But actively managing the family, it was my father, uncle, and myself, and now my father is retired, and from the next gen, we have 2 more people coming in. But your slide, that McGregor slide, was very relevant because I think till about 2 years ago, since it was just me, my father and uncle, it was all relationship-based leadership but now we are putting together a family constitution and we're creating a little bit more of systems and processes. So, I don't know if...
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Can you speak about the governance and the systems you have in terms of making decisions? Because that's one of the questions from our audience is, when do you bring in or do you bring in an outside consultant? And at what stage of, you mentioned the McGregor, complexity of family versus complexity in business idea.
So in our case, there is this professor called Professor Fred Munson from University of Michigan. So he's about 84 now. So he's been coming to the organization for the last 40 years. Spends about a month with us. So he was kind of contemporary to my father. But Dr. V was the one who kind of brought him. So he and his family have known us very well. So that relationship has worked very much. So about 15 years ago, even before Dr. V passed away, this is the 4th transition that has happened in the leadership. So having that person who knows that generation, for some reason all of us are comfortable talking to him and his family about him, and that kind of helped a lot. So he kind of loosened a lot of tension in the system, and when Dr. V passed away, then we formed a family forum. So we realized there are family issues, there are organizational issues. So a lot of issues in the family, earlier it was tried to solve within the organizational framework. So that has kind of helped us. Sometimes it works very well, and there is no issue, it kind of goes in abeyance, it's there. But when there is an issue, it comes. Recently, my nephew wanted to get married to someone outside. So it kind of became a big challenge. How does the family look at it? How does it deal with it? And so that thing came up. Because my sister was very upset. So it was not about him marrying anyone else. It was about my sister who has been part of this organization for about 30 years. She has spent a lot of time, she and her husband. So we understand we have to support him, but sister is more important. So the logic somebody gave us was, if something happens to a tree, always cut the leaves first, go to the branches first, then the stem, then the root. So we kind of took that decision. We said the boy can be let go for a while, but the sister is more important. So it's back and forth. When an issue comes, the family forum gets active.
Well, your idea of there is a professor who the family respects and knows and may or may not have come in as a consultant per se, but it's a family friend. And that idea of having an outsider, I personally used to be quite reluctant coming from family business myself about opening ourselves, opening our pains to someone who is not, who we're not comfortable with. But that's a powerful idea. And sometimes what we talked about trust earlier today, a good outside consultant is working more with the brain than with the heart because emotions are not involved. It's similar to going to a medical doctor. A good medical doctor will tell me when I don't have a disease, which I think I do, and that is when I have a simple system, a good consultant. So I would say bringing in a trusted person, a respected person early on, even if it is to say you don't need a complex governance system or you do need this kind of processes is helpful, and maybe the next visit is a long time in the making. So that would be like an annual checkup kind of a thing is helpful. One of the triggers with your response was, I've seen this as a new trend, particularly in US and Canada, where we have internships in undergraduate student days. And family business students have started to go for internships to another family business in another country. And so they're really exchanging their positions for 3 months, for 6 months, and thus getting to know the family of another colleague and vice versa. And a lot of new ventures are emerging amongst these junior generation partners because of the trust that has developed in those areas. Another question we have is, what about family members? Any advice for family members who have ideas that don't necessarily fit in the main business? How do they bring about, or how do they move forward with those ideas? What thoughts you might have, because it's pretty clear in how will you manage that in yours.
Again, it's very difficult. There's no one easy answer. Always say if the person is completely passionate about their idea and it doesn't fit into the family business scheme of things, then he or she must be willing to just go and raise outside capital and go ahead with their dream and vision. Because it's very difficult when you have multiple family members. Each person can start having their own idea, and how much of it is true entrepreneurship versus, just I'm a family member, I want to do something different, so I have access to easy capital. So it's not an easy question, but I would say that it has to, at least in our family, it has to fit within the framework. Otherwise, you're free to go and do your own thing.
Yeah, I think what's essential is who brings the idea.
Right.
What is their track record? What have they done? Does it fit into our canvas of iCare? If it fits into the canvas of iCare, still there will be some voices. I think in a 40 people family, there will be naysayers, there will be people who will have counter point of view. And I essentially, looking at the past history, I feel that resistance is very important, because you have to grow against resistance. You have to convince people, because you don't have that resistance, their character is not built over a period of time. So I think that resistance has definitely helped us over the decades, so that there is a strong underlying character that individual brings in. And that seems to be essential. I somehow feel you should not give in to their ideas too soon, because ideas might not be very deep. Ideas can come every day, every minute.
It just reminded me about the Kendall family. This is an American family which makes the Purell hand sanitizers. So the policy they have in their family is you can come up with any entrepreneurial idea, whether it relates to their core business or not. And the family has a fund, sort of a startup fund, but you have to come up with 50%. First, the idea has to be approved. It's a good idea. So they'll bring in experts from that particular industry. But you can only apply for up to 50% of the funding, and you've got to go find the rest of the 50%. And once the profits are also shared 50-50. And the 50% of the profits do get back into that venture capital or the family's venture capital fund. So that's a system they've made, and their family members, including in-laws, they've gone into many different ventures that are unrelated to the core business. But there is the pinch of first you've got to prove the idea or convince those from the industry, and then you've got to be able to share you've got to agree to bring that 50% profit back into the venture capital fund. So that's a new system that's being developed as in the startup fund for entrepreneurial ventures. In terms of the last question, I think here is, you both talked about, so India is a country where we have a lot of social challenges, and kudos to your company in terms of handling one of the really important challenges for our country. But we also have environmental challenges. I mean, just recently, the December Economist had a picture of, had a headline of why India is the most polluted country in the world. So as we go into the future, in respective industries, what role do you think can family play in helping with that challenge? And I'll elaborate a bit as you give it a little thought. Now, the first time we heard about our generation, that's all of us alive, are not leaving a better planet for our children than the one we inherited. We have CO2 issues, we have water issues, and so on and so forth, and it's urgent. It's got to be done, it's got to be done soon, and my contention has been to sustainability scholars is because you are not involving, because family businesses haven't started to pay attention to it. So for challenges like these, you know the Indian, and this doesn't have to be in your particular cases, what thoughts come to mind about how can Indian community, Indian business community collaborate or help in even making a dent in that kind of another global issue?
You know, in our case, I think as an organization, we can directly do something.
Okay.
We have close to 4 million square foot of built-up space and multiple locations. So how do we use water? How do we recycle water? Do we have enough alternate power sources for the organization? Though we don't have an incentive because we are not a tax-paying organization as a trust. But what do we do with all that? And then this whole frugal eye care. Because bulk of what you saw in the UK statistic of 1.6 billion is not going to good eyesight. It is going into things which are not giving good eyesight. Because good eyesight needs only about 30 million pounds, 40 million pounds. It doesn't need anything more. So how do you constantly showcase this model? We had no choice because our constraint was people could not pay. But the problem is even when they pay, we need to do this.
Exactly.
So that's how frugal we have to be. I think that's something which we are trying to be proactive about. How can the next generation do that? I think do more of what we are doing already, not go the other way, but try to go more frugal. It also helps the organization to be more viable in the long run. It gives a platform to kind of bring it mainstream rather than saying you're doing cheap things. You're saying this is the right way to do. So things I can think of.
So this, I mean, the question you've asked is a very big problem. So we do small things. So one is, of course, our foundation. We focus on 3 things, which is healthcare, education, and environment. So we do contribute towards certain causes that go towards improving the environment, or even healthcare, including defecation and how we can reduce all that. In our business, I think all our plants, we try to be as carbon neutral as possible. Many of our plants, we have about 24 plants, I think about 10 of them are already zero discharge. So our responsibility to environment, we go above what is the, what the law requires. So I think that is something that we also do. But the problem that you're raising is a much bigger one, which is an India problem, and it's also unfortunate. As a businessman, I always argue that India is getting industrialized only now, and I come from a manufacturing business which is polluting. But if I look back the last 50, 100 years, It's North America and Western Europe that's polluted this world, which has brought us to this stage, and therefore the magnitude of the problem has become bigger. And now suddenly to look at India and say that you be as clean as US is today, and not how US was 70 years ago, because we are what US was 70 years ago. But it's a problem, we cannot ignore it. So I think unless we find technological solutions, for example, solar, hydropower, I think those are the things that can overcome this. So it's not easy, but I think we do have a responsibility, and I think, of course, the government is also committed to commit to it. So.
Well, on a more positive note, while there was this headline in Economist that did say India is the most polluted country in the world, and they had these gold pictures of Bangalore and reminding us that every citizen in Delhi is, a non-smoking citizen in Delhi is smoking half to 2 packs of a cigarette a day. So that certainly it's healthcare issues, it's environmental issues. But on a more positive note, the World Economic Summit said, what can the world learn about sustainability from India? And did talk about the frugality, the yogic values we have, and hoping that we, because we are an entrepreneurial nation, we can leapfrog that, and with our technological innovations and entrepreneurship. So that's on a hopeful session, a hopeful note, we're going to close this session. And on this particular point, we hope you will all join us by the time we meet again in 2 years. We will have a session on, so what did we do about managing our sustainability issues? And thank you very much for your...
And thanks a lot. Before we end the session, I just request Pramodita to give the memento to Dr. Aravind and Lakshman. I'd request Mr. Harish to please give the memento to Pramodita. Yeah.